So I woke up from the Jehovah's Witnesses about 2016, 2017. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's the only like belief system and background spiritual experience that I have is being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Never had a birthday party thrown for me. Grown up a witness. Never celebrated holidays. Okay, and so my mom was a witness. My dad was a witness. Um, my stepfather was a witness. Um, and then I have several aunts, uncles, and an older sibling that were witnesses. So there was a little bit of generational expectancy, coming into it. I grew up in a mostly single parent household setting. Like I said, my mom did remarry a couple of times, so there were some stints of a few years in between growing up where we were a full unit, but I didn't have that consistently. In the South, Louisiana, it's my home state, born, but really raised in Atlanta, because I've been here since I was a minor when we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So, growing up, um, a witness back then, my mom was devoted, so there was, we definitely were not allowed to use profanity. We didn't go out much. My mom tried the best she could, but we didn't associate much with people who weren't in the Kingdom Hall. Um, Everybody always felt sorry for us, but at the same time jealous of my mom because of how she looks and how she took care of herself. So Watchtower was her saving grace because mom had a lot of stuff that she hadn't dealt with, and you know, you just want to know that you're a good person and can be forgiven. So that's kind of the emotional setup to where my mom wanted to get reinstated and went gung ho, and I was raised in that context. Raised as a Jehovah Witness, gung ho. Like there is no watery witness. How I grew up, like you were a Jehovah's Witness if you were a Jehovah Witness. Um, so I grew up in that. I took to it. I was very studious by nature anyway. So I took to all the books and all the studying and really thought I was making progress with getting closer to God. Um, I hit my teenage years and spending a lifetime in Watchtower, you know exactly what you can and can't do. But I started to do what most teenagers do and explore myself sexually. Not a lot, but enough to feel guilty over, which when you're raised in Watchtower, you will feel guilty about everything. I mean, everything's off limits. Masturbation, you are a child of the devil. Kissing somebody, looking back on the things I did now, it really wasn't a big deal. Like it was just normal teenage stuff. But I fell into, I developed into a lifestyle that is very much against Watchtower standards during my teenage years. I'll go more into that in a separate video because that's a whole like mini series. You know what I'm saying? Full of information. But I went through my teenage years being an unbaptized publisher, still going out in field service, still giving talks, but feeling guilty all the time. All the time, just feeling so bad, guilty, feeling ostracized, misplaced, unforgivable, all of that. And so when I hit my late teens is when I decided that I was going to take the truth, as we called it, take the truth seriously, like really put Jehovah to the test and dedicate my life to him and see if he doesn't, you know, bless me till there is no more want. Y'all know the scripture. And so feeling guilty about my lifestyle, feeling guilty about the person I was, and wanting so desperately to be closer to my mother because I knew she didn't approve of who I was and that she didn't really like me. She loved me, she respected me, but she didn't really like me. And I knew that becoming a witness and doing the witness stuff with her more would help that, or I thought would help that bond more. So with all of that, plus pressure from the congregation to get baptized, because you grow up in the truth, people be like, when are you gonna make that step? I heard that every week from people at least. You know, whether it's via a talk or whether it's from encouragement, from going out in service with the friends. You know what I'm saying? Always hearing it, always hearing it. So I finally got baptized, and I went I went to the wall with it. Like, I went to the max with it. I was a super Jehovah's Witness. I got baptized. I turned down scholarships to extend my education. I turned down so many opportunities in film, music, business. Like, I was like, I was dodging Satan. So I thought left and right, and I went gung ho, and as soon as I qualified to pioneer, I went into the pioneer work. I put in my application for Bethel. I totally turned away from what I was doing before I got baptized, the lifestyle I was involved with before I got baptized. And let me say this too, just as a FYI. I was so devoted and dedicated to doing things the right way, doing things Jehovah's way, that I confessed everything I had been doing to the elders before I got baptized. So they came to my house for a shepherding call. My service overseer, who was the school overseer and the elder in the congregation, and his assistant, he was also an elder though, but he assisted this brother on the school, and we all were in the same field service group. And so even before I got baptized, I wanted to start off with a clean slate. I admitted everything that I had been doing. I spilled my damn guts out and told them why I had did it, how I felt, and they were real nice about it. I mean, because I wasn't baptized at the time, I didn't have to do that, but I just was so determined to do things the right way. I did that. I didn't want anybody having nothing over my head. I didn't want to feel guilty. I said, nope, this is what I've been doing, and this is who I've been doing it with. This is it. And so, I went through that with them and whatever. It was cool. And so I studied for a year at the Draw Close to Jehovah book, got baptized. Boom. And I remember that day getting baptized. It was like I cried afterwards, but I didn't know why. It wasn't that cry of relief. You know when you feel like a weight been lifted off your shoulder, you feel so relieved and relaxed. You just shed tears of just joy and excitement. That wasn't the type of cry I had. I still felt bad. Even though I had stopped doing the things that I was doing that I knew Jehovah didn't like. Even though I studied diligently and I poured my heart out to Jehovah in prayer, I was faithful. I attended all the meetings, and all the extra meetings, Kingdom Hall cleanings. I did all of that. I was being a better daughter because I wanted to please Jehovah and I wanted to please my mom. I was turning down all these other opportunities. It's like I was giving it my all, and still something just did not feel right. I was making all the right logical decisions and choices, but something still didn't feel right. On my baptism day, I remember that I was crying in the stall, and I started off crying like, "Thank you, Jehovah. Thank you so much for allowing me to join your universal family." Yada yada yada. But then, like halfway through that, it was like I was crying, and it was like I had did something wrong, like that type of feeling. And I said, because that's how I was trained, I was like, oh, that's just Satan. That's just Satan messing with me. I did the right thing. Now, knowing what I know now, that was my gut instinct telling me, what have you done? Like, what did you just do? So, got baptized, went gung ho. I mean, I was an annoying ass Jehovah's Witness. I was. I preached everywhere. Um, they used to call it incidental witnessing. That's old school. But then they called it and then doing street work early in the morning. I would man, I used to be a server and a bartender. Well, mostly server because bartending lifestyle, la 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 la. Jehovah got something to say about everything. So I didn't do bartending that much, but I definitely was a server. So I would go in during the lunch shift, like 11 o'clock to like 11 to like 4. And so I would get up early in the mornings and do street work from like 6 to from 6 to 10. Those were my 4 hours in the morning, and I would meet with the group at 9:15, and or at 9 o'clock. I think we had ours at 9 or 9:15 around that time. And then I would go out and I would support the group for an hour, and that was I did that almost every day. That was my pioneer schedule. I did 6 6 6. I remember laughing about the fact I did 6 6 6 6 hours 3 days a week, 18 hours a week. and that was um, whatever the math is. I can't remember, but that was my schedule. Then I would go to work right after, and then I had 2 hours. I could go support the group in evening witnessing, but usually I just went to the gym. Usually I went to my CrossFit class. So did that for a while, for a few years, and all throughout me giving my all to Jehovah, I would have these huge bouts of depression. Just overwhelming feelings of worthlessness and confusion, and I just couldn't get a handle on what was wrong with me, because I felt like I was doing everything Jehovah wanted. I was being obedient to the faithful and discreet slave. I was literally giving my all to Jehovah, except when I had to work and when I had to sleep. I was doing something for Jehovah, whether I was getting ready for a meeting, preparing to talk, doing outside research, preparing for family worship, like trying to figure out how I can witness to my coworkers better, how I can relate to my family more. Like I was doing all of those things, watching all of the DVDs and videos, listening to the Bible reading, like keeping my family on track with the Bible reading. I was doing everything, and it seemed like the more I did, the more depressed I got. It was crazy. I would have these moments when I would be crying and praying so hard to Jehovah, asking him, is he punishing me still for the things I had did, or what is wrong with me? Why don't I feel this joy that the friends in the magazine depict? Like they in the magazines kikiing and ha-haing in field service. And in the meantime, I hate field service. I hate it so much. I'm learning these things. I'm learning. I'm reading. But the more I read, the more questions I have. Like, I'm trying to make sense of things that don't make sense. Is it because I'm just a bad person? I don't have enough faith? Am I not doing enough? Is the answer from is the answer, oh, do more research, when the research I'm doing is already leaving me hella confused? Like, am I missing something? And I know I'm not stupid. I'm not slow. Like, I have all my brain cells and then some, but why can't I accurately piece this together? And even if I could piece a lot of things together in my mind, it just didn't feel right to believe those things. The things that you're taught as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of things that just didn't feel right. For instance, for me, believing the 144,000 was a literal number never felt right to me. I'm like, how is this whole book of Revelation symbolic, but that one number is not? That is a literal number. And how are you going to determine who's going to heaven? And then I hate it when we got articles talking about how it's not important. It's like, yes, it is. If this is true and it's a literal 144,000 going to heaven, I need to know how y'all keeping up with that, and how are y'all using that to interpret the sign and the times that we living in, and how close we are to Armageddon, because that's important to me. I'm giving up a lot because I'm waiting on something to happen. If this is an indication of when that something will happen, if this is a justification to all the sacrifices that me and everybody else I know been making for Jehovah, we kind of want to know a little time scheme of when the hell this all gonna happen. Don't just say we know it's a literal number, but we don't know how literal the number is right now. That just never made sense to me. It never made sense to me how Jehovah had them 10 commandments about don't kill, don't steal, don't do this, whoopty whoopty whoop, and then he guided his people to do everything against that commandment. They were pillaging people, killing babies, taking young kids, taking young female kids for themselves. I'm like, is all of this stuff really literal? How is this a God of love? And then I would think about separate accounts like Lot. I already got a video about that. Lot, or with David. Or I would just read accounts and it's like, man, these numbers seem to be coming up. Like the number 40. The number 40 seem to always be coming up with something important happening. I'm like, what is this? It's got to be some sort of symbolism. And the society's like, no, but don't really ever offer any real answers to any real questions that critical thinkers in the truth might have. Critical thinking was discouraged. That's another thing that bothered me, because I like to read and research, but the society, growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, that is strongly discouraging. If you do it, you better keep it to yourself and not start talking about the stuff you finding out, because you're gonna be in trouble. And that sounds so dumb to someone who hasn't been through Watchtower, But being in trouble with Watchtower is like that is a real fear Jehovah's Witnesses have that is cultivated in us. We really be afraid of people in the congregation finding out we doing certain things because we can get in trouble. We could be disfellowshipped. We cannot, which to us means everybody we ever knew, anybody we know, keep in contact with, or even like, will not be able to talk to us. Because you damn sure didn't make no friends at school. You wasn't on no sports team. That's discouraged. You didn't join extracurricular clubs and activities. That was discouraged. So you don't have anybody else to turn to for any type of emotional support. All you have is other Jehovah's Witnesses that you've been knowing. And if you dare act up in any way that Watchtower deem a sin, you ain't going to have that social circle no more. Do you know how much anxiety that causes a person? I used to have nightmares that I was getting this fellowship, and I wasn't even doing nothing bad. I would just have nightmares where it's like I'm sitting in the audience and I'm watching the brother Thursday night before the service meeting start read my name off talking about Demetrius Freeman has been disfellowshipped. They used to say whether you was disfellowshipped or disassociated, and then later they changed it to where they just say you're no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. No doubt to suppress the actual number of people who were disassociating themselves versus being disfellowshipped. Because you don't want to start reading off somebody's name every week who decided to leave, because motherfuckers in the congregation going to start asking, why the hell is they deciding to leave? What do they know that I don't? Would you already be asking because you one of Jehovah's Witnesses? Because it's a bunch of bullshit you learning. Even from the premise of we take these things from the scriptures. We only use the Bible as our authority. The Bible answers the Bible because it's the word of God. It's all cohesive, and even though individual accounts may seem like they contradict other parts of the Bible, it all works to the glory of God's kingdom and his purpose. So even with them saying that, it still don't be making sense. Like, you letting the Bible answer the Bible, but these answers y'all coming up with, some about this is just not right. It's just not correct. And so I struggled with those type of debates with myself. Like, I would be battling myself, left brain versus right brain or something. I don't know. And then I slipped up one time in field service, right? And I told my service overseer that, I was bothered because I had seen a video online that was talking about Freemasonry and elites and how a lot of them are hiding behind the Jehovah's Witness headquarters. To this day, I cannot find that YouTube video, but I remember that video. It was a slightly chubby Caucasian man giving a presentation. I think it was Jordan Maxwell. It probably was him, but again, I cannot find that exact video. But I remember seeing that in a few other snippets online. This was years ago, y'all. I'm talking about, dang, 7-8 years ago. Oh, because I had started all these conspiracy theories. Man, it was probably older than that, actually. Because I had started down that rabbit hole even back then, and I cut it off short. I was like, I don't need to look at no more conspiracy theory videos. But I had heard Jehovah's Witnesses mentioning more than a few of those videos that I watched, and I was not looking for apostate stuff. Even back then, what I'm trying to say is, these things would drop in my ear without me even looking for it. And it's like, it would just make my mind start racing again about all the other doubts I had, but I had learned how to shut it off, right? You learn how to just not don't ask yourself them kind of questions. And so I had told my service overseer, and I was out in service, it was bothering me so bad. And he said, we'll talk about it later. And about an hour or two later, because we were doing a long day out in service that day, but about an hour or two later, I had met back at the truck, and we had a brother that had a big truck with a long bed in the back, and he would have snacks for the friends out in service. So he would have a cooler full of like bottled water and juices, and then like peanut butter cracker sandwiches and all that. I miss that brother. That was a nice man. Very nice. So we had met back at the truck, and we were all drinking and refreshing ourselves. And the brother I had told about the clip and how it had bothered me about what the guy said in the clip, and he said, well, you know that's true. And I said, what? He said, the thing you told me earlier, you know that's true. Now, the brother I told this to was the elder who I had confessed all my sins to, who was my service overseer, who was a former Bethelite, who was a pioneer. Like, he was the type of brother who got tickets to the annual meeting every year. He was well known in New York Bethel and Nigerian Bethel. He was well known. In fact, it's because of that brother I got to serve at Nigeria Bethel for a few weeks. So he had that kind of pull, and I knew that. So for him to say that really blew my mind. You're right about that. I was like, right about what? He said, the thing you told me earlier that you saw, you're right about that. And it just shook me, because I already had a feeling something stupid was going on with these Jehovah's Witnesses, with the governing body. I used to study, y'all. I used to study the Proclaimers book. I remember when that DVD came out about let your light shine, or let your light shine, or let the light be known, when it basically gives a history about how we were founded. Even then, in that video, it was certain things in there I was like, that's real problematic. Now, Watchtower tried to be real sweet about all that Masonic symbolism, and about how Rutherford, how Russell got his information for all this Bible enlightenment and where it really came from. See, Watchtower do a real good job covering over all of that. But that stuff did not go unnoticed by me and a lot of other people. I noticed the triangle symbolism. I noticed the pyramid. I noticed all of these things, and no, it wasn't easy just to say, oh, well, the light kept getting brighter, so they kept refining their practices. Because a lot of that stuff still resonated, even with how we were being taught as Jehovah's Witnesses in current time. I'm like, this stuff is not that much different, though. It's different, but not in the sense of, oh, we have fundamentally evolved. It's like, it's different because y'all trying to cover it up more. But this stuff is pretty much still the same. These beliefs that we have now is just as stupid as the beliefs they had back then. In fact, Jehovah's Witnesses religion back then, when Russell was running it, was probably a more tolerable religion than it is now. I'm willing to say they was allowed to smoke. They didn't get micromanaged about no holidays. You know what I'm saying? You ain't have to go door to door. Like, it was like, okay, it's another Christian section of Christianity, but not how we was raised in it. That was one of the strictest, most diabolical religions you could be a part of, and didn't nobody notice it. But everybody noticed it. We all felt like something was fucking off. Excuse my language. But we all felt like something was off. And it was. So for me to grow up in that, feel like a piece of crap, feel like God gonna destroy me, force myself to get baptized under all the pressure that was put on through the congregation and through Watchtower and all of that stuff. And then the misleadings of the Bible that mess your mind up, and all the strict rules that don't allow you to question things like you supposed to question. All the sacrifices you make, you go through all of that. Then to come to find out that your suspicions might be right. So see, I had a seed planted even all the way back then. But again, I learned to ignore it. I was overeating with food. I was trying to hide this tendency I have to be violent. I used to love violent video games. I used to play that in secrecy, but I needed an outlet. I didn't know that at the time, but I know now. I use the Xbox, Mountain Dews, Taco Bell, Sony, and Cheetos to get through my chronic depression being a child of Watchtower. Because, baby, that is a real thing. That anxiety, that PTSD, that constant guilt complex and inferiority complex, all of that is real. You grew up in Watchtower, you gotta suffer with something. If you don't suffer now, you did for a little bit at least, because Watchtower put on the works, man, the works. And so to hear that, it was like, shove that down, shoved it down, shoved it down, shoved it down. But I couldn't keep shoving it down. Man, I just couldn't. Keep shoving it down. And I waitressed, like I said, and I was pioneering. I did a couple of weeks in Bethel, Nigeria during that time, which was like the best experience I ever had being a Jehovah's Witness. That was top notch. I'll talk about that in another video. But I had all these privileges, and I was looked up to in the congregation. I was the pretty young sister with the Bible studies, and the pioneer. Oh, look, she sacrificed, give demonstrations, always giving substitute talks. I did all of that. None of that could stop me from doubting the validity of Watchtower's claims. None of that. And you couldn't have been more spiritual than me. You couldn't have been. You can't. Like, I was that girl. I prided myself in a weird, sick way on that. Um, because you don't have no other accolades to achieve when you're a Jehovah's Witness. So you look forward to people finally admiring you and getting the admiration of that pioneer sister. You know, brothers would come from different halls to see me, to try to date me, marry me. I didn't want to date none of them motherfucking losers. Okay? So anyway, I already done said that in other videos. I'm definitely not going to that right now. You can check out the other videos. But anyway, so I end up changing jobs. I end up going to a bank. And then one of my JW friends, a brother, had told me about the fire department. So, not to get into too much detail about that. This video is already long. Um, I I applied. I got it. I got hired. And when I got hired on the fire department, I moved. That was the first year I moved out. I moved to the city, changed congregations, and by that time, I had been through so much with the congregations. I had switched congregations twice because of the bullying that was going on with me and my mom. The elder that I thought was down, he ended up turning his back on me. He ended up getting deleted as an elder because of all the stuff he was doing, which the other elders used me to get to him because they had been wanting to delete him. It was a mess. I had been through so much stress that year, especially after I came back from Nigeria. I came back from Nigeria, all hell broke loose because remember that brother, my service overseer, he was the one that had the pull to get me sent to Nigeria. I was already working I was on the RBC too, in the plumbing department and the electrical department too. And so he was able to use the fact that I was on the RBC, good standing in the congregation, and a regular pioneer to get me to go help on the building committee in Nigeria. And I stayed at the Nigeria Bethel and Igedema. So that's how all that happened. So once I came back, some of the brothers didn't like that he had that type of pull. And I don't mean to bring race in it, but I need to mention it. Obviously, my service overseer was Nigerian. Everybody else on the elder body was African American raised, and majority of them was white, old white guys. Now I live in southern Georgia, okay? You do the math. I ain't about to get into all that because you are old enough and mature enough to understand where I'm going with that. So, I had been through the stress of that. Then they ended up taking my mom off the pioneer list in the next hall because they had a thing against her because she was the baddest bitch in town. Excuse my language. My mom is not a bitch. She was the baddest woman in the Kingdom Hall, and they didn't like that. We had to change halls again. Like, it was just craziness. Them 2 years before I started slowing up, it was like controversy after controversy after controversy. And then Tony, he had given that little stupid talk about the sisters wearing Spanx, and I had just really embraced a fit lifestyle because that I didn't have to eat a lot of food and play violent video games anymore. I found working out. That was my outlet. So when he tried to, I felt like he was taking a shot at me personally, telling me not to wear it. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to work out in? And you telling me not to work out to look like you, nigga? I'm going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. That was my first true like apostate moment. Even though I had my doubts, even though I was being put on game by other people, that was my first in my heart apostate moment where I said, I am not listening to you. You are just saying, you are making things up. And it took him saying something personal about that for me, for a switch went off. Like a switch went off in my head where I finally admitted to myself, man, this some bullshit. But it had been building up after all those years, after everything that happened. And I didn't even mention the goddamn child abuse when I was younger. There is some child abuse that happened. I do not have a conscious, vivid memory of it. But when I look up, I was always drawn to the topic of child sexual abuse. And when I would look up articles in and outside Watchtower, everything I was going through had fit that to the T. And then I was raised in a cult, which encourages the importance of a man's voice and position over that of a woman's. Now, I'm not here to get into any type of social or political debates about feminism and toxic masculinity. I'm not here to talk about all that. Quite frankly, I don't know if I ever will, because those type of topics do not interest me. What I am here to say is the religion being brought up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, as a woman, you know your voice does not equal that of a man's. That is point blank, period. There is no one that can argue that fact who knows anything about Jehovah's Witnesses. That is the truth. And so anything that you have been through, you leave it in Jehovah's hands. And you do not bring reproach upon Jehovah. You don't bring any negative light to Jehovah or his hand-chosen organization. You just don't do it. And so you learn a culture of silence and secret keeping growing up one of Jehovah's Witnesses. My mother had it. I had it. I didn't come out and say anything about the abuse till I was well older, you know. But it was something that you are encouraged to keep that shit to yourself. Excuse me, keep those things to yourself. Okay? And Jehovah will heal you, he'll fix you, you'll be perfect in the new system. Don't worry about that right now. Just keep on praying and keep going out and field service. That's it. So that's what I did. So you have the consequences from all of that, and everything's rolling over. Tony said that, and I was like, bro, this is some bullshit. They making stuff up as they go. But I was still going to the meetings, and then around that same time, I had bought one of my first self-help books. One of them, I was always in the self-help, self-improvement, all of that. But I purchased this particular book called Healing the Shame. I think I have it in here. Yep. I sure do. This is a new one actually, because the old one I had got stolen with my old backpack. But this book right here. Oh, this is not it. How to raise your self-esteem? No, the one I had was on healing the shame. How to heal the shame. This ain't it. How to heal the shame. Healing the shame. I gotta find where that book is. I'll put it maybe in the description. But I did an exercise in that book that I still remember the question it asked. It was something like, if you could name 10 things in your life right now that causes you the most unhappiness, that causes you the most stress, something like that. But the trick was you couldn't think about it. You just had to read the question, boom, and then write a response. That's how the book was set up. It would give you these prompts, and then boom, you just go for it. So the first thing I put was being a Jehovah's Witness without even thinking about it. Right now, boom, name 10 things that cause you the most unhappiness in your life. Being a Jehovah's Witness. Feeling left, you know, and by, I didn't even notice I had put being Jehovah's Witness until I looked at the whole list, and I was like, dang, that's how I really feel. And that was the first time I was able to admit to myself, I hate being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't like being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Being one of Jehovah's Witnesses is so stressful. And by that time, I was a first responder. I had left the bank job and I went to the fire department. So I was a firefighter. I was a firefighter, and I was going to school for advanced emergency medical technician, AEMT, because you got to have dual certifications in Georgia to be a firefighter. So I was already stressed, and my job was stressed too. But I loved my job. I really loved my job. The thing that stressed me out was when I had to go to the meeting the next night. It was like, oh God, you know. So I guess after I don't know if the job had something to do with it. Like after I had seen some trauma, like real trauma, I was seeing some real life. I was living with people who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses for the first time. I was broadening my perspective. That it became increasingly easier for me to call out bullshit. And Watchtower was always number one on my mental list of the bullshit. And so, I was out my mom's house. I was in my own apartment for the first time. So I went through that exercise. I sat there all night and I said, you know what? I'm tired of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. If I'm supposed to be going to the Kingdom Hall, if I'm supposed to be devoting my life like this to Jehovah, then I damn sure deserve to be happier than I am right now. And if I just be honest with myself, I am not getting anything out of Watchtower anymore. If I ever got anything at all. So I'm going to just not go to the meetings. I'm going to just take a week and not go to the meetings and see how I feel. Jehovah, guide me. I just need to do an experiment. I prayed this to Jehovah. I said, Jehovah, I just need to do this experiment. I'm not going to go to the meetings. I'm not going to study. I'm not going to read the Bible. I'm not doing anything spiritual for a week. if this is the organization that I belong to and the one that you're guiding and you're the true God, then make it plain as day that I need to get back to the Kingdom Hall. Make it plain as day. If I'm making a mistake, Jehovah God or whoever you are, please make it obvious to me after this week that I need to move on. That's how desperate I had gotten. Now, this was back in 2016. Let me tell you something. I didn't do not one thing spiritual that week, and it was the best week I had of my life. My life. I'm just talking about just working, being regular with people, coming home and relaxing. I felt so good that week. I didn't feel depressed. I didn't feel as anxious, and I was still a first responder. But even my job didn't stress me out that much when I just took a break from all that propaganda bullshit for that week. And that week turned into 2 weeks, turned into 4 weeks, 10 weeks, 3 months, 6 months. And then I found myself inactive, and yeah, I hadn't been to the meeting in like 2.5 years. Or the convention. Yeah. Yep. So all those years go by. I stay faithful. Even though I'm not going to the meetings, I was physically out, but I was mentally in, because I just always would feel guilty. I didn't even get a chance to enjoy myself, honestly, because I was still functioning mentally as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I still didn't go to birthday parties. I did hit the club a few times though. But I didn't really like it. I didn't really like it. It was noisy and expensive. I didn't get it. I guess I had matured too much by that time. It just didn't allure to me. But I did go out a few times. I did not have no kind of sex at all. I didn't do none of that. Um, I didn't do any of that. So I was that. So 2 years, and then right before I wanted to seriously go back, I was like, man, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna talk to the elders. I know I'm gonna get this fellowship. And it doesn't matter that I haven't done anything, they're not gonna believe me. Like, I had enough worldly knowledge by then to understand that these elders are humans. At the end of the day, they not gonna believe somebody like me ain't did nothing. So I said, before I go back in, I need to go ahead and do some things I haven't done. So I experimented with various things, whatever. I ain't getting into detail about that. This ain't no confessional. It kind of is, but I'll talk more about that later. But anyway, I do a few things that I hadn't done before and I wanted to do and experience for the first time. And then I said, I need to go back to Jehovah. You know, like, that's enough. You're grown. This world is getting worse. My mom this whole time had been encouraging me to talk to the elders, and I said, okay, okay, it's time. I need to go back. And there would be days I would try to get dressed for the meeting, and I just couldn't get dressed for the meeting. Or there'd be other days I'd be dressed for the meeting, and I would get in my car, I couldn't drive to the meeting. And then sometimes I drive to the meetings, get all the way in the parking lot, and could never go in the Kingdom Hall. Just sit in my car the whole meeting. Like, physically can't get in the Kingdom Hall. I'm sitting there thinking I must be demonized. I literally can't move out this car. I feel so sick. I would just be looking at the Kingdom Hall from my car. Like, I should be in there worshiping Jehovah. It was the hardest thing in the world. I would end up driving back home, crying on the way home, thinking about how worthless I was, and asking Jehovah, what is wrong with me? I'm trying to worship you. Why can't you help me worship you? If you want me to worship you, Jehovah, get me out this car and into the Kingdom Hall. That only worked a couple of times out of many times. Sometimes I would listen to the tie-in my car, but physically could not go in that Kingdom Hall. Or I would do it at home. The elders would, hey, what's going on? You all right? I would blame work, like, oh yeah, I just worked and I couldn't make my schedule. My 8 shift schedule fell on a meeting day, or I make it up at another hall. Never making up the meetings. Tried to, but just couldn't do it. and I was just getting frustrated because I wanted to worship Jehovah, but it just seemed impossible to worship him the way he wanted me to worship him according to Watchtower. And so last 2019, now remember I've already been inactive. I've experienced a little bit of the world, but whatever. But I still want to worship Jehovah. And so last year I had my breakdown. I had my breakdown. 2019 I had my breakdown. Um, October of 2019. So to the year I had my breakdown. I had quit my job back in August. It was just too stressful. It was just too stressful. I felt like I was going crazy. I was feeling increasingly guilty about not serving Jehovah, and then all the BS on the job that was happening with witnesses, mind you. I worked with witnesses who were family members. You would think the bullshit would be like non-existent. So I was like, I'm out. And that October, I said my final prayer to Jehovah. I was so mad. And then I had found out some stuff about what had been going on with like all these like just opening up my mind to what was going on in the world. And it's like, how is the world getting so bad and God's not doing anything? I'm trying to worship Jehovah, can't worship him. I prayed to Jehovah and said, listen, if you the true God, I'm tired of playing with you. If you the true God, show me right now what you want me to do, or else I'm gonna kill myself. And I had already had a homeboy earlier last year, earlier 2019, who was Jehovah's Witnesses, who was one of Jehovah's Witnesses who committed suicide. And I knew this guy. He worked at the Whole Foods up the street from me. We had known each other since we was kids. So you know how that go when you know somebody. Y'all not close, but y'all have these stints and these bursts of communication and interaction throughout the years. So you feel comfortable with a person. I'm used to seeing this guy every day at Whole Foods, blah blah blah. He committed suicide earlier that year, and that was something else that drove me like I got to get myself back right with Jehovah. I'm sitting here knowing I didn't entertain some suicidal thoughts. And this was a smart, handsome fella, and he committed suicide. And it's like, man, ain't Jehovah supposed to be giving us joy and protecting us from that? So all these things was building up, and I just gave him my ultimatum. And I was in that house, and I was in my apartment crying, screaming, yelling, tearing up everything. I was so mad at God. I was so mad. I mean, I had a full blown meltdown. I'm crying, snot's coming out my nose. I'm like, Jehovah, how could you let all these things happen? How can you leave me in this state of confusion? How can you let your faithful servants commit suicide? How can you let us be sick and be victims of this system? We didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. How can you say you have the answers, but you leave me in confusion? How can you have somebody who is as capable like me, you telling me not to use my gifts? How can you expect me to listen to people I know don't care about me, who are imperfect, who don't have my best interests? How can you put all this stipulation on me and not give me clear answers, Jehovah? You supposed to know everything and be able to do everything. So why do I feel so damn bad? I'm serving you. I'm serving you, and you ain't doing shit for me. So why the fuck should I serve you? Why should I go back? If you want me to go back to the Kingdom Hall, why is it so hard for me to go to the fucking Kingdom Hall? Why can't you make that shit easy? I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking to learn how to serve you better so I can live through this mess called life that you gave us and allowed to happen. This like I was going off to God while I'm crying, yelling, knocking stuff over, just destroying my place. So fucking mad about everything. And after I had my fit, I went to sleep crying. I woke up a couple of hours later. I check my phone. I go on YouTube just to see something. And the first video in my recommended was an EXJW story by Monica. By Monica. I can't remember her full name, but the older black woman, her story was in my recommended list. I had never typed in Jehovah's Witnesses in my search bar on YouTube. I never typed in cult. I never typed in waking up EXJW. I didn't even know EXJW was a community and it existed. I didn't type in nothing like that, and it was the first recommended video. I had never even seen a video titled like that before. And I looked at that thumbnail and I was like, fuck it, why not? And I looked at that video and I cried some more because I knew everything she was talking about. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How I felt is how someone else been feeling this whole time? Really? Baby, that blew everything out the water. Now I'm typing in EXJW. Oh, my EXJW Awakening. The algorithm just feeding me EXJW videos. Feeding me EXJW videos. I went from wanting to be a Jehovah Witness again, trying to figure out how I can muster up the motivation and the courage to go to a Kingdom Hall, to being validated for the first time in my life. The first time in my life. Somebody know exactly how the hell I've been feeling. And then you find out the shit ain't true. Like, then you go into the doctrines. Oh, 607 BCE. 144,000. Like, everything is wrong. Blood transfusion, people dying, suicide rates, pedophilia. The court cases they winning and losing all over the world. It's like, whoa. So now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I'm not going back, but I still am attached to my mom. She's still one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The month of August, the month of October and November, I was on an EXJW binger. All I did was watch and binge EXJW videos every day, every night. Mind you, I'm not working anymore, okay? So I got all the time in the world. And then my back goes out. I'm in the midst of a deep depression watching all this stuff. My back goes out. I'm stuck on my couch. Now I'm really watching EXJW videos. I have nothing else to do. I'm doing all this other research and realize, oh my God, I was raised in a goddamn cult. This is a cult. Like some shit you watch on TV. You look at other dumb people and you go, ooh, they so dumb. They don't know they ain't no cult. I'm one of them. Everything I ever wanted, everything that I built my life around was a lie. Every opportunity I turned down was for nothing. Every sacrifice I made, every embarrassing joke that got told about me, every moment where my shame was amplified and I was made to feel like nothing. All of that I went through, all the drama in the congregations, all the lies from the platform, all the discomfortability, all that bullshit was for nothing. This is just a cult like all these other cults out here. You telling me I was in a cult the whole damn time? So then the depression and the anger just hit and I started making YouTube videos. In December, I told my mom I'm going to write my disassociation letter. That was December 2019. She couldn't believe it. She was sad. She was crying. It was very emotional for me and her. She says, you know, I can't talk to you. A few weeks later, around my birthday, January 8th, I turned in my disassociation letter. The brother said he's not going to read it. My coordinator said, I'm not going to read this off because you're going to come back. I need you to come back. I ended up having a conversation with him. And then I got scared because after I had a conversation with him, my mom texted me the scripture in the Gospels where it talks about a demon will leave a place, come back, bring like 7 of them, 8 of them, however many numbers, but bring back more demons. I got scared because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get attacked by demons. So I texted my coordinator and told him, don't read my name off yet. I still want to pray and think about this. And then I never followed up. But I started making videos. So, and that's where I'm at now. Like, technically, I'm still one of Jehovah's Witnesses. My name has not been read off. I have not been disfellowshipped. I have not disassociated, at least not legally in Jehovah's Witness terms. I have written a letter, but they're holding it until further notice. And I don't think I'm going to give them further notice. They can check out the YouTube channel to see how I feel about it. But that's basically my awakening story. Like, I got baptized. I mean, there were noble reasons, but they weren't the right reasons. And waking up is just finally deciding not to ignore that voice in my head that said, this is not right. This is not, something is wrong with this. So, I mean, a lot of people is like, well, you just want to live in sin and you just want to do this and that. Sometimes shit just don't make sense. And being one of Jehovah's Witnesses for me did not make sense. It did not make sense. So, you know, I don't know who this could encourage or it might encourage, but I just wanted to get it documented and just, you know, anybody watching this for the first time, like, you're not alone. Something is wrong with this organization. Your gut feelings are right, and you need to leave. If you feel like you don't belong there or something is wrong, you need to leave. You need to follow that, because that is really how God communicates with us. The supreme being, the creator, whatever, universe, whatever you want to call it. That's how it communicates with us. We are a part of this universe. If you feel like something is wrong, you're probably right. You probably need to stop. You probably need to go. If you're being introduced to certain types of information, don't let the Jehovah's Witnesses spook you out with, oh, you're going to be demonized and all this and that. I done did plenty of things that Watchtower said I was supposed to get possessed from. I ain't never been possessed in my life. Okay? I'm not saying you will or won't, because I don't know the full depths of the science of demon possession and all of that. All I'm saying is that's something that scared the hell out of me. I have not been demon possessed by anything or attacked by anything since I done left being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So don't fear that. That alone will not cause demon possession, because it hasn't for me, but I'm speaking from my experience. And fear of not being able to talk to my family, those are the only things that kept me wanting to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Is I'm afraid of not being in communication with my family, and I don't want to get attacked by Satan and the demons every day. Like, who wants that life? Nobody. So as far as the family and friends concerned, you'll learn to get on without them. You'll learn to get along without them. You may not think there's a way to do that now, but it is. You'll get over it, and then you'll realize that they're under Watchtower spell, and you don't want to be in communication with them that much anyway, because they are not right here. If you're an active Jehovah's Witness, or you have family members or friends, you already know what I'm talking about. You see it in them more. It's like, wow, you're really twisted and screwed up due to Watchtower. You know, Watchtower did a number on all of us. They did a they did a number on all of us. But if it ain't right, man, it's not right. And now, I tell you what, I'm not suicidal no more. I don't have as much depression. I still got my times and my days, but there was a perpetual anxiety and depression with Watchtower. Is not nearly as bad as it is now. If you don't believe that Watchtower is the factor that's stressing you out the most in your life, then go a couple of weeks without your meetings and see how that feels. Just see how it feels. God, a God of love that you claim you worship, not gonna punish you because you miss a couple of meetings. The God of love is not gonna punish you for wanting to test out. Doesn't it? Isn't there a scripture, test out and see that Jehovah is good? Yeah, test it out. If it's really good for you to be at the meetings, then go without the meetings for a while and see how good you feel after that, and then make your own decision. That's something I encourage for everybody, because you can't. Nobody can tell you how to live your life, but you have to take charge of how you want to live your life too. And that's what a lot of us XJWs have done. We have just taken charge and decided to look the monster in the eye, so to speak, and really admit how we were feeling, and really put under scrutiny, proper scrutiny and critical analysis, the organization that we were serving, the one that we were led to believe was God's only true organization. And we decided to say, well, is that really true? Let's find out. And we found out, oh, it's not. They're just as human and infallible and as man-made as all these other churches and religions. All the ones we was taught to have disdain for and to stay away from and to actually hate. And you realize Watchtower is just like them. And in some ways worse. In a lot of ways worse. That's a mind job. That's not easy for anybody, but we have taken, XJWs have taken the plunge. We've made the ultimate sacrifice of having the ability to have free access to our family and friends who are still under Watchtower's spell. We've taken all of that. We've changed our belief systems. We've started over. We've started completely older, whether we're teenagers waking up, 20s waking up, 30s waking up, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and above. No matter where we at, you find XJWs in all walks of life from all over the world, all age groups, and all of us, once we realized that we were tricked into being and staying in a cult, all of us have to start over. We have to start over. In almost every way. Financially, you got to start over. Emotionally, you got to learn the world for the first time. You got to figure out who you are for the first time, what you like, don't like. It's a lot waking up from Watchtower. No one does it easily. It's a process, and it hurts. It hurts in a lot of different ways. But again, if you know you're not living your life right, and you know Jehovah's Witnesses is not the way to go, you can't keep ignoring that voice. You have got to take some action and get the hell out of there, because you are right. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with them in that organization. And if you feel like you don't need me or anyone else to say it, you just using me and other HAWs as a source of validation and confirmation of what the hell you've been feeling. When I heard my first XJW videos or whatever, that wasn't the first time I felt like that. I was